Hey guys, Jim here. Going to do right now a review on my very first custom-made directly for me fixed blade knife. Now you guys may remember if you go back a few months into my reviews where I've said I've never really had any interest in fixed blade knives. I'm a folder guy and that's where I stay. And my interest was first piqued when I got my Jason Browse Coroner with the zombie pattern done on it, because it was something that I had seen Jason do. I thought the knife was really badass, and I just, called him up one day and said, "Hey, dude, you should really do that cool zombie theme to the Coroner." And voila! Next thing you know, he did it, and they were extraordinarily popular, and I was able to get my hands on one. So it's such a big knife, though. It's so impractical for my needs, and that's been my thing, why I haven't gotten into fixed blades, because they're not practical for me. I don't live out in the woods. I'm not an outdoorsman of any sort, so I don't ever get a chance to go out and do something where I would need a fixed blade. My requirements for a knife are that it fits in my pocket, that it can be used in a tactical defense scenario or for regular EDC cutting needs, opening boxes, cutting twine, yada, 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 that sort of thing. So I really kind of gave up on the idea. And then Mike, you guys know him as Gavco, made some Kiridashis one day. And I said, you know what the hell? I need one of those little things. It'd be cool, just a fun little thing. And my little teeny tiny Kiridashi has become one of my favorite little knives. And I realized, there is a practical purpose for these things. Well, Ryan and I, Ryan Carlson, by the way, who is NYKM, New York knife maker, he and I have been talking for a couple of months about doing something on a small EDC Wharncliffe, Pocket Wharncliffe. And this is the kind of thing that this is what he does, man. He makes these wonderful, small, pocketable, little death tools, as I like to call them. And he does really good work. And you got to realize that Ryan is an up-and-coming maker. He's very, very, very new to the game. And what I love about Ryan is the fact that he's continually pushing himself. If you go back and look at knives that he made 6 months ago, very rough around the edges and needed a lot of improvements in a lot of different areas. But he recognized that, and he took pride in the fact that he was growing every knife that he made. Everything that he makes, he strives to make better. And what I wanted to do is I had him send this one as well, because I saw the work in progress as he was making this, which was kind of one of his first more pimpalicious knives that's got some polishing and some beautiful Kirinite and everything. So I said, dude, send that along too. And I'm at the point now, I already told him, I said, I think I want to buy that from you. I don't think I want to send it back. So I think I'm going to end up buying that too. We'll see. We'll see about that. But when we started this was about 3 months ago, and Ryan had a few things come up in his personal life and some other business things. So I told him, I said, don't worry about my stuff. Get everybody else's work out and, get your life and family stuff together. I'm certainly in no hurry. I have a couple of knives to get me through. So he's been wonderfully, wonderfully patient. And at the end of the day, I'm glad that it took so long, because I've had a chance now to experience a lot of different kind of things and look more into what my needs would be if I wanted a fixed blade. So what he did was he decided, I kind of gave him free rein. I said, do whatever the hell you want. All I asked for was this particular blade profile, which was mimicking one that he had made about 3 months ago. And I took a screen cap from that video and I put a big red arrow. I said, I want one that has that blade. So from here back, he basically took his own creative license to do whatever he wanted. We had discussed carbon fiber, and then he surprised me with lightning strike carbon fiber. I was not expecting that. I was also not expecting to have additional lining scales, which he used gray G10, which is a nice contrast. Now again, as we start getting the closer looks here, we're going to start talking again about how the wonderful thing about Ryan is that he's always improving, and you're going to see differences and improvements from mine to the one that's sitting next to it. This is not a perfect knife, nor was it expected to be. One of the things that we discussed was keeping this a little bit more square so that I would have a little bit more leverage when I am cutting something that's got more resistance to it than, say, I don't know, paper or cardboard or something, because I do want this to be a user. I have not carried it in the pocket yet because I didn't want to put any marks on the blade from the pocket sheath that he made. He did a kind of a cool thing here with this little tab. What it's going to do is when it sits in the pocket and you go to draw the knife out, when it lifts up, this catches behind the rivet at the seam of your jeans, and it catches in that little notch area in there, and it leans it forward. You just put your thumb here and the knife pops out. It's actually kind of a brilliant design. Not what I was expecting, because when we were initially doing this, he was working with a leather maker, and he had some really kick-ass leather pocket sheaths, and that's what I was looking forward to. Unfortunately, that guy dicked him over. It was a really, really bad thing. So he's begun now just doing his own Kydex. But he did fit it nicely. It's going to work well, but I didn't want to mark up the blade by sticking it in there before we start looking at it up close. And that's where we're going to start, is with the blade here. We'll get a good look at his satin brushed flats, get a look at his grinds. It's got a very, very fine tip here, which is going to be excellent. Get a look at that edge. Now, one of the requests that I made was to bring it down to a fine razor's edge. Let me grab something I can cut here. I think I still have a magazine sitting over here. Sure. That didn't work out so well. Come on now. Sorry for the delay, guys. I wasn't really prepared, now was I? Alright, that's good enough. One sheet. So one of the things I asked for was for it to be completely razor sharp. And as you see, for such a big, bulky blade, he most certainly did that. I mean, this is ribbon cutting sharp, and I've already cut a whole bunch of things with this, you know, different paper stock and whatnot. So I already knew how sharp that was. It's stupid sharp. He did a fantastic job, and he did exactly what I asked. The other thing I asked was, he's a big fan of doing chisel grinds, which is having one side with the very, very steep bevel, and the other side is completely flat. I'm not a fan of that. I like my knife to look good from both sides, not look like it's unfinished on the other. Some people love a chisel grind, and that's great and wonderful. I'm just not one of those people. I like a nice symmetrical grind, and I think he did a pretty darn decent job. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but he did a pretty damn good job. It's a very aggressive grind, by the way. It's very nicely done. I love the fact that he added this false edge up top, this nice big deep swedge. The one thing I forgot to ask him was what kind of steel he uses. Now on this one, as you see, that stock is tremendously thicker, so it's going to be a much heavier knife. Very, very big difference there. Look at that diamond though. And see what I'm talking about? Every knife he makes, he gets better and better and better. So he looks at everything as a learning process. Now here's the great thing about that. He's not charging $400 or $500 for these knives, guys. He charges $200. Now I think for one like this, it may be a couple of dollars more, but they're relatively inexpensive. They're great performers. They're made to perform. They're not made just to look pretty. As a matter of fact, until this and maybe one or two more before it, they weren't really about looking pretty at all. Basic scale work, or excuse me, basic handles, and you know, no real polishing or anything on the blades like you're seeing here. So what we're seeing is an evolution in his work that's actually pretty damn impressive. Now let's get into the pros and cons, the positives and negatives that I do on every single one of my knives. Doesn't matter who makes it, how much it costs, that's the way it is. I like the fact that he does include a lanyard, and there are a couple of different uses for the lanyard. Obviously, it's going to be very easy to use it this way to kind of pop it up out of your pocket. You can also run your fingers through it. Got enough room there for that. Adds a couple of beads on there, ties it off, looks good. He did a nice finish job. If you notice here, nothing's sticking out or poking out. Everything is even in the way that it should be. He did a nice job evening out the lightning strike carbon fiber. I feel no burrs, none of the copper wire poking through, which we know can be an issue. He contoured the frame very heavily, and here's where we start getting into the minuses. This was one thing I couldn't figure out. He contoured the lightning strike carbon fiber so much that you see the gray G10 scale coming through. Now, for me, that takes away from the uniformity of the look and the overall impressiveness of the knife. If those hot spots weren't coming through, your eye wouldn't go to something like that, and you'd be looking at it going, damn, that is one hell of a sharp looking knife. But unfortunately, those things are going to detract away for most people. So that part, you know, it's got to go into the not so good column. But on the flip side of that, he did it for a reason. He did it to make it comfortable. It's not blocky. There are no sharp edges. It's still a beefy kind of squared off grip, but it's not going to be digging into you anywhere. The points here are a little bit sharp at the back side of the blade, which is where your finger is going to be resting. So as you see there, it's going to be a little bit sharp for you. Overall, not the worst thing in the world, but it should be noted. There is a little bit of inconsistency in the grind, and there's a little, you don't feel it on the edge of the blade, but you'll see there's almost looks like a ripple right around this area at the edge. So that's really about it. I think we can see it a little bit more easily. Get it to focus, focus. Come on, big boy. There you go. So you'll see it's right about there. But overall, it's not hindered the performance of the blade in any way. It's cut through, again, very, very light stuff right now. It's going to be going through a little bit more of a workout later. I know he did put a lot of work into the finishing, the brushing on this. It should be a little bit more refined. If you were charging more money, that would be something I would definitely knock it for. But again, this is a $200 knife, not tremendously expensive in this day and age. And it's meant to be a utilitarian knife. It wasn't meant to be pretty. If it were this one, then I would have that issue. And as you see, he did a much finer job on the finishing here. Still not 100% perfect, but he doesn't claim to be either. He doesn't have that type of ego where he says, you know, my shit don't stink, mine's the best stuff in the world, if you don't like it, piss off. He's not like that. He did a great job on the polishing here, and you gotta realize that takes balls. There are a lot of makers with 30 years in the game, charging several $1,000s for their knives that will not polish their steel. Believe me, I know. I've made that request of many of them, and many will not do it. So he's doing a very commendable job there. And I got to tell you, this thing, whoo-wee, I love this one. Now, this feels a little bit smaller in the hand because it's so much thicker and chunkier. But I got to tell you, there's something special about that knife right there. That thing is just wicked sweet and cool. And of course, mine. I dig it. I love it. And it's you know, it's perfect for what it was intended for. So if you're looking for a knife that you're not going to be afraid to use, oh, he did do that well. That locks in nicely. Pops off there easily. Let's see if it leaves any particular rub marks. There's a little rub mark there. No, it's just a piece of Kydex that came out. So it is rubbing in a couple little spots, so I made a good choice by not putting it in there before the video. Alright guys, I will say this, if you want to get into a wonderfully made, utilitarian, strong, tough knife, again, I did not have a utilitarian edge put on mine. I wanted a fine razor's edge on mine because I want it to be stupid sharp. So do keep that in mind. Talk to him about how you want it ground. If you're going to use it for, you know, regular basic everyday EDC tasks, cutting paper and cardboard and stuff like that, do it the way I've got it. If you're going to be a little bit more abusive and have harder materials, you're cutting through cables, you know, stuff like that, you probably want more of a utilitarian edge on there. Let him know. He's flexible. He is super easy to work with and has a tremendous attitude, not only about knife making, but about life in general. He's just a good guy. So head on over and subscribe to his YouTube channel, and that is New York Knife Maker. It's very simple to find. Not only does he do cool stuff with showing off the knives that he's made, he does a lot of how I made it kind of videos. He does this Jack Daniels Friday, which I can't put it into words. You kind of have to see it for yourself. And yes, he's drinking Jack Daniels and playing with sharp things. And furthermore, he's doing kind of like a multi-episodic little reality show about knife making, about his philosophies on knife making, what got him into it. Because you got to realize this is a family man with a full-time job. He does this because he loves doing it. He's not doing it to get rich. He's doing it because he feels there's a soul to the steel. And there's a part of him in every single one of the knives that he makes. And that's why I think it's so important to support that type of knife maker. Because it's not just about, well, if I sell X amount and this X amount, and then I can get a contract, and this big company will buy my design, and then I can do this, and I can do that, then I can buy the big house on the beach. He's doing it out of the love of the steel, period. And the enjoyment that his customers, his friends, as he puts it, the enjoyment that they're going to be getting out of the knives that they receive from him. He says he's given away more knives than he's actually sold. And you know what? I believe that. He seems like that kind of guy. And as an example of that, he felt bad about me having to wait 3 months to get this knife, and he refused to let me pay for it. And I have to make that very clear and upfront and honest, because I don't ever want anybody to think that changes my views on how I do a video. Not in any way. I buy every knife that I review, except for the guest blade stuff, but that's self-explanatory. If it's my knife, I paid for it. But in this case, he says, you know what? I don't feel right charging you. You had to wait. You've been patient. You've been a really great guy about it. I just want to give it to you as my gift to you. As you know, I couldn't thank him enough. I thought that was a fantastic offer. If I keep this one, yeah, I'm paying for that one. So I can definitely say, if you're looking for an absolute perfect knife that has no visual flaws whatsoever, you know, go spend the $400 or $500 and go buy a Strider or whatever else. But if you're looking for a knife maker that gives a shit about the art of knife making, that gets better and better and better with every knife that he makes, to the point that I do think in a year or two, he's going to start cranking out stuff that, you know, would be worthy of commanding that, you know, $400 or $500 price range. But he's experimenting right now, and he's learning so many wonderful things about the trade and about himself. I mean, look at this. That's insane. That's why I fell in love with this. Because the way he did this grind, this is something he hadn't done before. He decided to challenge himself. And every time he pushes himself, he just becomes a better maker. And what more can you really ask for? Anyway, guys, I'm going to cut it off at that. Go visit his channel. Go watch some of his videos and subscribe. New York Knife Maker. And by the way, I just want to get it out there because everybody says it. He's eliminating the billboard on his blades. He's going to a much smaller maker's mark. I asked him to, I specifically requested him to do the larger one for mine, because I'm going to be using this at work. And when I'm using it on television and the camera's 30 feet away from me, I wanted a larger logo to stand out. You know, do a little bit of advertising for the guy. Get his name out there. Let people see that I'm proudly using the knife that I own, made by this guy. So maybe they'll Google search it, come across his videos, or come across this video. Who knows? We'll see. But yes, he is going to be using a more discreet logo, because a lot of people have knocked him for that, and I get that. I'm not a big billboard guy myself, so there you go. All right, guys, go visit his channel, New York Knife Maker. Say hi to Ryan, and pick up one of his knives. I think you'll be very, very pleasantly surprised. All right, guys, good night, and I'll see you on the next video.